We'll call the regular Board of Education meeting to order and have roll call, please.
Dyke.
Here.
Walker. Here. Frisbee absent. Maycumber.
Here.
Wintering.
Here.
Agenda item 2, the reading of the district mission statement by Director Maycumber.
Our mission is to engage, inspire, and empower students and staff in order to maximize learning.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections?
One correction. Item number 8 should read 2019 instead of 2018.
Motion approved agenda as corrected.
No, second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as corrected. Roll call vote, please.
Wintering.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Maycumber.
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes, motion carried 4-0. Agenda item 4, welcome the visitors and have public comment. Anyone care to make public comment this evening about items not on the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item 5, comments by board members and superintendent, and we'll begin with Dr. Cox.
Thank you. Well, to start with, we are in the brand new transportation center tonight. We had an open house from 6 until 6:30, and we celebrate the opening of this addition here at 1204 Comet Drive, so it's on the back side of the middle school, high school complex. I want to send congratulations out to our Charles City softball team and coaches. They finished 4th place at the state tournament last week. They upset the #1 team on the way to state. So again, congratulations to our team and coaches. I want to remind the school board members that the filing deadline for this upcoming school board election is Thursday, August 3rd to have paperwork turned in, and that is due by 5 p.m. We have online registration that we have implemented for all of our district patrons that will go live next Monday, July 31st. There's a link at our website to help you with this. Think of the mantra, avoid the line, register online, and do it at your convenience, at your home, at your time. If you need assistance, we will have 2 days of in-person registration, August 8th and 9th. And so you come to Charles City Middle School for whether you have a student in grades kindergarten through 12th, we will have staff on hand to help you register online there. We'll have a series of computer units available. But again, if you want to avoid that line, register online and do that at charlescityschools.org. Lastly, and I'm sure you'll talk about this a little bit too, President Dyke and I were invited to present at the Iowa Association of School Boards Fiscal Management Conference last Wednesday, and our topic was sharing your district's fiscal story, tips and strategies to keep your community informed on fiscal issues impacting your district. Had a lot of positive comments afterward from the session, and just wanted to share with the public that board president and superintendent were invited to go speak in Des Moines, actually Altoona, at that conference. So there's a short summary of some things happening.
Thank you. Any board members have comments?
It's been a great vacation.
Yeah.
Yes,
Sorry.
nice hiatus. Well, it's nice to hear you guys are still on tour for Charles City School District. It just continues on.
We had a board member, I don't know where she's from, I recall seeing her previously, but she came up afterward to just say, you know, I love listening to your presentations to Scott and me, so.
That's great.
It was a nice compliment, yeah.
Very good.
There were probably, I don't know, at very different times we counted between 35 and 40 people out of the 200 that were at the conference were in our room listening to us, and shared the time with Waukee Schools, but want to thank Dr. Cox and the staff for putting together the 24 roughly PowerPoint slides, and the presentation went well, and I'm sure as the people at Iowa Association of School Boards and those that attend those conferences keep inviting us for presentations and communications engagement, we'll probably get invited back again. So it was very good to take a day and go down and talk to other superintendents and board members and learn some things, so.
Well, we're very proud of you because there have been many years that Charles City was never invited to present anything, so, yeah.
If there's nothing else, we'll move on to agenda item 6, student involvement and GPA data from Mr. Wolf. And we're gonna need to get you a microphone.
Either grab that one
This one.
or head to the other side.
That's fine.
Can you see this screen?
Are we good?
Good.
Can I steal any of this? This is all I need to do is build. Yep. I'll just stop right there. We're in the game now. We good? Okay. This is a follow-up to a conversation we had probably April, if I was correct. Maybe in March, we talked about student involvement, and I said I'd come back after the summer seasons and spring were all over. So here we are wrapping it up. So I'd like to wrap it up real quick and just share with you that, and I know the screen is hard to see, but those are all the activities that are available for our kids, 37 different things that they can participate in. From a cappella, which we have 24, which was started in 14 and 15. We have a barbershop choir that was started in 15 and 16. Girls bowling and boys bowling that was 14 and 15, all the way down to, I was going to say it, now I lost it. Pom Squad, etc. There should be fencing up there in alphabetical order. Fencing, yes, there it is. We had 8 kids involved with Mr. Pittman in fencing. So those are just things that the kids can do inside the school district, that activities are either sports, fine arts, or extracurricular, co-curricular activities for them to participate in. Our goal going into this year, we set a pretty lofty goal of 85%. I'm here to share with you we didn't make it, okay? Not because we didn't try, we just didn't make it. And trying to move that extra 2 or 3% is a lot of kids. So I guess we'll celebrate the fact that we're just around 82%, and we'll try to find those other kids and get them engaged in some process.
Maybe soccer will be there.
Soccer will help us too, and then we have more kids involved in swimming this quarter than we did last year, so that'll help too. But a lot of times you'll find out that they're the same kids. You know, busy kids are busy kids, so. Anyway, to end it all, 82% of our kids were involved in an activity, and those kids involved in activities carried a 3.253. So pretty proud of that. That's the beginning of it. So those are things that we'll share with the staff. If you looked at the middle school data, they were even above that 84% because less activities, more concentrated, your 7th and 8th graders can be involved in. So hopefully that'll continue on. So let me set this down and slide one more slide. Do you guys have any questions about the amount of activities? Some are teacher directed, some are coaches, some are school related. Others are just student driven. There's an anime club up there that meets every week in someone's room, and they watch videos of something I've never seen before and talk about things I'll never talk about, but it's their thing. So, and they even carried a 2.60, and they're pretty proud of their efforts there. So. This next slide has just a bit of color to it, and I'm gonna walk over there, but I'm gonna talk a little louder, and I just want to show you what it looks like, and then I'll come back and talk about it. This year's graduating class as seniors, juniors, sophomores, freshmen. So when you look at this, you can see it trending by colors. Okay. Unfortunately, there's a section here that says no data, but why do we use this? Well, the first category right here is freshmen this year, and they'll trend down this way. Kids involved in no activities, 1 activity, 2 activities, 3 activities, 4 or more. So when you look at that, that's what that'll be about. So I'll give you an example. How is this used? Well, it's a good talking point for one. Because when I have freshman parents, I have 2 parents come in today, and they said, we don't know if we want our child involved in, I said, whoa, let me, I brought this up to them, I said, if your freshman children are involved in 2 activities, on average, they carry a 3.4, 3.1, 2.8, 2.9, and 2.8 in the last 5 years. That's been their GPA for involved in 2 activities. Okay? If they're involved in 4 activities as freshmen, here's their GPA for the last 5 years. 3.43, 3.48, 3.50, 3.56, 3.55. Okay? But get some skin in the game, you're going to be more successful. The key is what we have found is between a freshman and sophomore year that the number jumps drastically down. And partly because as kids have to make decisions. They also start driving, and they also start working, so that they're getting pulled a little bit in every direction, and kids start forced to specialize. But I think that one of the things, if you look here, kids involved in no activities. When they were freshmen, the senior class, 23 kids were involved in no activities. 23 as sophomores, 20 as juniors, which is odd, but if you think about what we added at that time, that might have something to do with it, and 21 as seniors. So 21 of the graduating seniors last year were involved in no activities in high school. And this is the first time ever that kids not involved in activities carried above a 3.0, 3.002. It's never happened before, so congratulations to those graduating seniors. It falls all the way down to 22 kids involved in 1, 28 in 2, 20 in 3, and 15 are involved in 4 or more activities. So even think of yourself, as you watch activities, how many 4-sport athletes does Charles City cycle out every year? 4-sport athletes aren't as common as they used to be. I'm thinking like right now our senior class that we just had in baseball. Drew Mitchell was a 4-sport, Nathan last year was a 3-sport, and Jordan Capping was two activities. If you throw an FFA out there, then they're 5 and 4. So you get the idea that they're not as common as they used to be. But that's just something that we use on a daily basis every year to kind of culminate things, and I wanted to share that with you. So here's some things I'll end with. The first time ever senior class that was not involved in activities ended above a 3 point. There is a strong correlation between the amount of activities you're involved in and the higher the grade point. And you guys can deduce that there's time management involved, there's being a good teammate, you don't have to be this great player. The crazy thing is this represents, now think about this. This year alone, our high school participated in softball state, cross country state, volleyball state, bowling state, track athletes at state, wrestling at state, speech people participate at state, large group and individual, band people at state, vocal people at state, orchestra at state, 77 people, or 77 people involved in FFA. Okay? We're getting a lot out of our kids. So don't let that data think that we're not doing what we need to do. There are some kids that we'd like to get more involved. We had one student involved in 10 different things in the high school, one involved in 9 and 2 involved in 8. Unbelievable. I want you to reflect back to your high school time when you were involved in 10 different things going on in high school and carrying a junior load. So, anyway, any questions for me regarding that? I like where we're at. We got room to grow. We'll still put that 85 goal out for next year. Then if we ever hit it, we'll have a full party. So this is a reflection of the kids' effort and commitment to the activity we have in school.
Awesome. Very good.
Thank you much.
Nothing?
No.
I was just going to say, thinking back to my high school, we didn't have 10 things available to do. When you look at that list, there's 30, what'd you say, 7?
37. Right
We didn't
now.
have half of those.
Well, I'll give you an example. The student could be involved in student council.
Sure.
They could be basketball player. They could be a football player. They could be involved in 3 different choirs. They could be involved in orchestra. They could be involved in FFA. I'm trying to think things that might not. Trap shooting. There's a spring one, and baseball.
Yeah.
And now, if you take those sports away, it's even harder to do if you're involved in multiple choirs and all that stuff. So we find that we really push that.
Yeah.
Get some skin in the game and be successful.
If If we could just get that information up on our website to share also, that would be great. Perfect. Thank you.
Great news. Thank you.
Agenda item 7, the German-American Partnership Program trip is up for review and action. We have Mrs. Butcher here.
Right. Thank you very much. This coming June, we do not have firm dates set just yet, but we're looking at June 4 or 5. And it'll be 3 weeks, 1 or 2 days instead of 3.5 weeks as normal. But we have to be 10 days within the school, and their school gets out early this year. Their school year is set by the government, so yeah. And then we have 3 days in Berlin as normal. And I always like to have at least 3 weekends so the kids can have family time and do family activities that are beyond what we plan for them. So we will probably return on the Monday, which I don't remember, I'm sorry, June 25 or 26. I prefer returning either Monday or Tuesday, but we are going through a service this time. It used to be ISE, International Student Experience. I've never used it, so some of you may be familiar with ISE. It is now called Experitas, and they're going to do the planning, and then the kids make their payments to this organization. So, questions that you may have?
8 students
8 students this time
is,
from Charles City. 2, possibly 3 from St. Ansgar. So we'll be at least over 10.
do you see any way that we can increase those numbers?
I would love to. I think it's going to
Anything?
take a lot of work, and it probably is all because of the funds that are needed. It's about, I've tried to keep it to 2,500, which I've asked questions of some groups and travel opportunities, and I have really been amazed that a former Charles City student is going with Mason City on a tour to Europe, not to Germany, but his is $4,000. And I have also heard of another student paying $5,000 for a tour, and I'm thinking, okay, $3,000, which is what I'm looking at, and a homestay and 3 weeks in school, etc., is still a pretty good deal. Yeah, I am very aware of the cost. I would love to do more types of fundraising to see if that would be,
That would aid them?
yes, if that's the problem, then, yeah.
But it is 10 days, right?
No, it's 21
Oh,
to
21 days.
21
Oh, I
to
wrote down
25 is what 25 is just really 24 25 is really very good. We were there once for 28, and
That's a lot.
it seemed really long. For me, it did.
It is it's an amazing experience, and the relationships that are formed through that program are,
Ongoing.
and it
is
doesn't
what-
happen in anything
yeah.
else we offer. So I'm saddened by the fact that there is only 8.
Yes, me too.
And
But that is a high number, actually, right now.
somehow at all that we could find some way to help that number grow.
I would love to
Yeah,
work
It is
with,
an experience that's.
yes.
Well, I'm wondering how many students go on to German 3 and 4? Is that?
That has been up in the past couple of years. Yeah, usually it falls, but the last 2 years, for sure, it has been up. This year we have a total of 30 in German 3 and 4. Yes, 15 and 15, I
Wow,
believe.
That's
So
good.
that's a lot, but they only have 8 that are able to, and if we
that's a
are
shame.
looking at finances, yeah, there's got to be something we can do.
I have,
Help
No,
them.
I mean, only 8, or it's nearly a third of those students. I mean,
Right, but if they.
that is a good,
That's a good percentage, you're right.
True.
It is. But
15 would be even better.
15 would be awesome.
yes. Optimally, what I would love what I would really like to see happen is to have those juniors go. Because then they would come back and hopefully at least one half of a year they would still be in German, and then see the value of that and see what they could possibly do as far as college and career orientation internationally even. Yeah. So I agree.
If there's anything,
Keep me in mind so we can work on some things
yeah, if there's
together
anything that
possibly.
as a board we can do, if there's a barrier or something that we could.
And we have had, the last 2 years, there has been a community person who has donated anonymously. And this year, it was over $700.
Oh, isn't
Now,
that
that's
nice?
divided among these students,
Right.
but nonetheless,
Right.
that's $90 or
Wow.
close to $80, $100. That's very appreciated. Yeah.
You bet.
And Marilyn, if it were opened up to second-year students, they're not quite ready for it yet?
I have in the past taken second-year students, and last year I had a second-year student, and one of the past second-year students said, I really liked being on this trip, but I could have done so much more if I'd have had another year of German. So traditionally, it's been 3-4.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I just kind of take a look at what is the student like in class, what, and I would like to have them all within that B range or 3 range, however, with standard space grading. Yeah, high,
Because of the
mid to
10
high
days
3
of
range.
School, where you need to be able to interact, that's where it really comes back to a 3-4 is more appropriate.
Yeah, and what is really, I think, the best situation for them as far as using their German skills is the homestay.
It's the homestay.
It is.
Yeah.
Because invariably, one of the parents is not strong in English, and sometimes both parents are not strong in English. And it's really wonderful if they have a grandparent living in the home, as quite a number of them do. They're wonderful. They're so non-judgmental and so accepting and so giving, and it's really nice.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
nice.
Right.
They have to spend the 10 days. I was going to say, is there, if the program, and I hate to say this, but the program were to be cut shorter, would that even anything? I guess I'll leave it to you this next year to maybe really, if there's anything at all, like I said, that we could possibly come up to increase the number, so that we could send more.
I think probably the kids would, it's not the cost of the number of days. Basically, the biggest cost is, of course, the air transportation. Yeah. And then Berlin, possibly $700 to $800, 3 days. That's not too bad, I don't think. It's the transportation there, it's everything there. Hotel, everything except their food for 1 or 2 meals. We usually have breakfast at the hostel, hotel, wherever we stay. Yeah.
Very good.
Ready for a motion?
Where is it? I'll make a motion to approve the 2018 German exchange trip as presented.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 2018 German exchange trip. Any other comments from the board? Comments or questions from the public? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Walker,
Yes.
Maycumber.
Yes.
Winterick,
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes, motion carried 4-0.
Thank you.
Agenda item 8 is the social studies trip. We have Mr. Pittman here.
Hey, I'm Rob Pittman, teacher up in high school. I'd like to reiterate what Mrs. Butcher said. In the last 2-3 years, prices have slowly started to increase on all kind of student group trips, and it's a struggle, absolutely. And before I get into my pitch about Peru, I'd like to point out that our school is the only school in Iowa for a public school that offers fencing as something for students to do. And in the Midwest, we're There's private schools that do it and 1 or 2 public schools. So it is a really unique thing. For my, every 2 years I take a trip. My last one to Costa Rica last year was fantastic. It was an adventure trip where we did a lot of active things and got really exposed to the culture. This one is a little bit more along the lines of a National Geographic Explorer trip. What kind of gave me the inspiration for it was one of the first National Geographics I read covered Machu Picchu. I kind of pulled some of the students. I was like, hey, would you like to go there? Would you like to go to Iceland? And overwhelmingly, they were like, when I showed them a picture, they were like, I want to go there. So to give the students chances to see where the Incas came from, but also to experience the indigenous people, to go from the coast of Peru all the way up into the Andes Mountains where Machu Picchu is. Geographically, as somebody who loves geography, is a great thing to do. They also get to hit several of the big towns, Lima, of course, Cuzco. And then there's an area that I have to explore more called the Sacred Valley that we are going to go to, where it will be very much the highlands of Peru and the distinct clothing and the style that they have in the open markets. And then, as I usually do, it's going to be during the spring break of 2019, depending on how our calendar gets absolutely set out. The trip will be probably 9 days, and then we're very lucky that we have RAGBRAI coming through our town this year to help start raising some of the money for everybody. And yeah, and barring a snowstorm, I have no problems that I foresee coming up, which is what happened when I was heading to Costa Rica. Do you guys have any questions?
How many students did you have on the Costa Rica trip last?
We had 33.
33?
Wow.
And you anticipate, I see upwards of 25 on this one?
Yep, but
Okay.
when I went to China, I only had 8.
You had 8.
So it could be anything.
What was the cost of the trip to Costa Rica? I wonder why the big difference.
I believe, Costa Rica is, I think it was for the people when they first signed up, it was $2,400. They signed up later, it was like $2,700. But I believe the difference would just have to be that extra time in the airplane would be some of it. Then I guess it could get into the infrastructure issues, any of those kind of things. Those are things I don't quite know about.
Yeah, and China was how much then? That must have been.
I think China was $3,100, but I'm not positive. And that one, the travel inside of China is way easier than, say, doing in Costa Rica or Peru.
There's not a total correlation in the cost necessarily, maybe interest in what the sites are.
Yeah, I think there's probably algorithms out there that answer all these kind of questions. It could be like going to Great Wall, I think would be different than, say, going to the volcanic national forest that we went to in Costa Rica. The volcano one, I don't think there was even an entrance fee. Great Wall, everybody had to do it. So different things like that.
The trips that you do always sound great. I think, you deserve a lot of credit for putting these together and planning them. But I've wondered, just as a philosophy, as these trips come up, if it is sitting here as advocates for students and wondering if we were to do some type of social studies trip that were domestic or maybe into Canada, North American, would it be more inexpensive? Would it be something that more kids could take part in? And, such that, I'd love to see a busload of kids, 50, 60 kids, going out and experiencing whatever it may be, Mount Rushmore, the Grand Canyon, even just seeing the ocean. Because as we know, we've got 60-some% free and reduced lunch here in this district. Not everybody's going to even get outside of Iowa, let's face it. So I just have that question with philosophy with these trips.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with what you're kind of suggesting maybe more like a school-wide trip is maybe more in that kind of order. I'd like to point out that our band they do, I go every other year opposite the band and what they do, and
Yeah.
that tends to actually, I believe, get more of our students involved and doing things. You know, it's a great idea to explore, but I don't know, like, everything you mentioned were also things that, like, that you know, with our free and reduced lunch, I can totally see your point. You know, because those are things that I was like, I'm going to show my children the Alamo, you know, and those kind of things.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
understand what you're saying.
Exactly, yeah. So as we sit here and we're trying to offer a lot of opportunities for kids and realizing not every kid is going to be able to go, but, like Robin was saying with the German program, I think every year we always wish that the numbers are greater, and it's great that you had 33 last year, because I remember previous years they were maybe they were smaller groups.
About 20.
Yeah. So that is just what I'm challenging, is perhaps does social studies have to be international?
It doesn't necessarily have to be international, but I feel with where the world goes that maybe we should. Because, we give one opportunity for students who take German, but then that leaves a significant portion of our other students who have no availability of taking that international trip. And like my last trip that I took, the kids who actually get the most out of it are the kids who are in that 60% bracket, who work at McDonald's and pulled in extra shifts and paid for their own trip. Those are the ones who actually tend to get the most out of it too.
So they would appreciate it the most, wouldn't they?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wish there was a way again that we could
Yeah.
somehow fund
Mm-hmm.
those that can.
Well,
Because it is experiences like that take students that might be on a path to maintaining where they have been raised and where they are, and it's things like that that may open up a door and excel them to remove themselves from that level and move forward. I mean, I've definitely seen that firsthand.
Yep, absolutely.
That it's very inspiring, but how to reach.
yeah, because like you had said, you have the band trip, but not everybody's in band, not everybody's a third or fourth year German student, and I think travel just transcends people and really just shows you, what could be, and that there is world outside of our cornfields of Iowa, and for kids to see the monuments in DC or the tar pits in San Diego or the Grand Canyon, it's all very meaningful. So,
How much can, if one student participates as much as possible and maxes out their fundraising, how much can they eliminate on their cost of this?
With what has already gone on, like in just this summer, there's one kid who is at $115. When you add in RAGBRAI and then 2 full years, it can be not a quarter per se, but maybe like a fifth of it. I could see.
$500-600, yeah.
You have mechanisms in place besides the fundraising to help people if they need it?
Yeah, some, but it's more along the lines of sense of like the payment plans, making sure that it like gets started early enough so that everything's a manageable size for a student to do, and that's more of like a one-on-one counseling and like talking to the students. Like there's a young girl who is gonna be she'll be a sophomore, yes, and like I've already had a conversation. I was like, we start it now. This is how much money you would roughly need to do, and she's like, all right, I work at this restaurant and I can make that in my tips. And I was like, all right, awesome job.
good.
but, yeah.
I think as long as they're having the conversations on an individual basis and working with families that may need to, you know, that's what I would like to see is, especially if anybody is having trouble with finalizing their payments, you know, there are other options.
Absolutely.
And you're aware of the counseling and assisting to find the last few $100s that people may need. So as long as you keep that on task, to not let anybody drop out because they're short that last couple $100.
Absolutely. Which has actually never happened.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2019 social studies trip as presented.
And I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 2019 social studies trip. Any other questions or comments from the board? Questions from the public? Roll call vote.
Maycumber,
Yes.
Winteringer,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes, motion carried 4-0. Thank you, Mr. Pittman.
I hope you 33.
Agenda item 9, at the board table. Whose job is this? Whose job is it?
Oh, boy, here we go.
Haven't we done this one
Worth
before?
it back. I think we have, maybe 3 times.
Is this a lack of number of opportunities?
You have not done this one before. You have done this
What have we done?
at a regional meeting
we
with
did.
someone else, but we have not done this as an at-the-board table exercise. I've kept track for the past 2 years, and this one has never been checked off. So I'll challenge you, if you've already done this, and you ought to ace this in about 7 minutes. So we'll see.
I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to be made a fool of. So you guys answer all right.
Come on, we coached another district through this.
You've got 2 handouts. You have one that's stapled together with the questions that you're going to see up here on the slides. So if you wanted to take a look at those right now and start jotting some notes, you could. I'll start with our goals for our time together. And again, this shouldn't take us all that long. We're going to look at a consideration of a scenario and determine whose job is it. It will be a consideration of the same scenarios and what role the whole board would play. And then determining indicators of micromanagement, and I believe that should be a second handout that you have, just a single page. So, as the board, as I read through each of these, I want you to ask yourself the following 2 questions. 1, whose job is it? And then B, or 2, what is the board's role? All right? Scenario number 1. Dreamfield School District has made funds available for the purchase of a 1-to-1 laptop for their middle school. The decision will now need to be made regarding whether funds will be invested in laptops, notebooks, or tablets. Now, one of the board members is an IT specialist for a major company. Whose job is it to ensure the correct information is made available to inform this decision? We're going to look at the blue box, whose job is it, and then what the board's role is. So I'll give you a minute to jot down any answers if you need to. If you don't need to jot down, whose job is it?
Superintendent.
What's the board's role?
Approve the expense.
Discuss, ask questions, vote.
This is gonna, all right, I'm gonna head over to the computer and see if I can't click on that blue box to make it show the correct answer. Hey, my assistant's gonna jump over there and click on that blue box to see if we can't get that to pop up. There we go. All right, whose job is it? The IASB has thoughts on best practice. Justin, you may want to take a chair because we got 5 of these to work through. Thank you. This worked at my office, so I thought it would work here too. So a professional staff committee, technology director, middle school teachers, et cetera, involved in the decision-making process would have the responsibility of conducting the research and then making a recommendation to the superintendent, who would include the committee's best thinking in his or her recommendation to the board. Now, that board member IT specialist may want to forward some questions to the superintendent for consideration by that committee. Do we get Chromebooks or MacBooks? Do we get something else? Send it to those people who've been hired, again, that committee of technology director, those middle school teachers, and have them bring a recommendation to the superintendent, who brings it to the board. There's a danger in having a single board member serve on this committee, as that individual could easily be seen as a representative of the whole board. He or she would have more information than fellow board members and might make commitments which would interfere with the objective evaluation of the superintendent's recommendation. Those are thoughts from the Iowa Association of School Boards. Thoughts on what the board's role is, and I think I heard, approve the recommendation at the board. So the board will have had a thoughtful discussion regarding policy and the law in the area of technology acquisition and use. The board will have attained a clear understanding of the district goals and the goals of the budget. Using this understanding built over time, the board will ask good questions and make a decision in regard to whatever recommendation is brought forward by the superintendent. So, number 1, you pass. Let's go to scenario number 2. So look that over while, Betty Smith approaches board member Birdie with a request. And I know our favorite names that they always use aren't showing up here tonight. So, Betty Smith believes that her daughter is not being treated fairly by her softball coach, who is also her math teacher. Betty wants to sit down and have a heart-to-heart talk with the coach just to get things out in the open. However, she really wants a witness with some authority to be part of this conversation. So she would like Birdie, as the board member from her director district, to be that person. The question is, whose job is it to help Mrs. Smith get a full and fair hearing from the coach? Do you need some time? Do you have a response? All right, Jason, who's?
It's not the board member's responsibility.
Okay.
For sure.
And would be either athletic director, superintendent, principal, somewhere along that chain of command.
Administrative.
What would the board's role be?
To act upon any recommendation brought to the board, depending on if there was a need for it.
We'll click the blue box. So Mrs. Smith needs to determine who has the authority that she's looking for, and as Jason has said, she just needs to be reminded of that chain of command. Who do you go to if you have a problem? If she doesn't feel comfortable going to that coach one-on-one, then the board member could recommend the AD or the principal, somebody that has direct supervisory responsibility for that coach. The board does not have direct supervisory authority over individual staff members other than the superintendent. So to become involved in this would set a dangerous precedent, possibly interfere with the board member's responsibility to remain objective about individual staff if their actions ever resulted in a termination hearing. So if the board member got involved right now, at a future point they may have to recuse themselves and couldn't be part of that. Thoughts on what the board's role is? The board will review district policy on chain of command, also empower staff members with the authority to deal with citizen concerns, provide staff training in needed areas, and then have a clear understanding of their duty to remain objective about performance of individual staff members, again, in case of a termination hearing. All right, we're 2 for 2. Scenario 3. The Dreamfield District Superintendent plans to recommend staff cuts at the next board meeting. 5 teachers have formed a Save Our Staff Committee and approached 2 board members who also happen to be ex-staff members. They've asked these 2 board members to look at some data that they put together regarding how the district could save money without making the cuts and thus better serve the needs of all students. Whose job is it? Oh, keep going. As former staff members, these 2 board members have special insight into the situation. So whose job is it to review the committee's data and make sure it's part of the board discussion? I'll give you a moment just to...
The superintendent, they need to be referred to the superintendent so the superintendent can review the information. If the information is viable, it needs to then be sent to all board members to review.
All right, we'll click that blue box. So the committee needs to take its report to the superintendent. Boom, we're 3 for 3. Superintendent, preferably with the help of the district business manager, can then review the data in reference to the entire district budget, and the superintendent may wish to reference the committee's data or report as he presents his or her recommendation to the board. If 2 board members come into the board meeting armed with this information, when the others have not had access to it, and it has not been reviewed in relationship to the whole district's big picture, then district unity could be negatively impacted. Role of the board, again, establish district goals and priorities, which have been a guiding factor in the overall budget formation. The board will hear reports from the superintendent that are pertinent and accurate. Ultimately, the board is responsible for asking good questions and making the decision as a whole board on the superintendent's recommendation. Scenario number 4. Superintendent has developed a plan for ongoing review of building maintenance over a 5-year period. But before presenting this plan for board approval, he called board member Jack Spratt into his office. Jack has always been interested in building maintenance and has offered some specific opinions and suggestions to the plan, which the superintendent has not included. The superintendent hopes to conduct a tour of buildings with Jack in tow to reach some compromise on the areas that are of most concern for Jack. Whose job is it to present individual amendments to the plan? Whose job is it to present individual amendments to the plan?
Well, it doesn't clearly say they have a Buildings and Grounds Committee.
Nope. Jack really has an interest in facilities, so the superintendent called him in to say, hey, let me take you around and show you some stuff.
So assuming there is no Buildings and Grounds Committee, I would say the superintendent is not behaving very correctly and trying to bend Jack Spratt's ear here and twist his arm into getting things the way he would like to compromise. I think that it's the job of the board to decide what is going to be on that maintenance project. If it's a, let's see.
A 5-year plan.
It's a 5-year plan,
Yeah.
yeah, it's the board.
Whose job is it on that blue box? Well, hopefully Jack has had an opportunity to express his concerns and opinions at the board table in front of the whole board. A tour of the buildings is a good idea, but it would be preferable if the whole board were invited rather than singling out one chosen board member. The superintendent is responsible to make any adjustments to the plan before presenting it to the board. The whole board, as Lorraine said, would review the plan as presented and discuss it and generate questions or concerns that they may have in advance of voting on it. In order that the superintendent can seek appropriate information or clarify the recommendation, the board will have policy on buildings and grounds and planning. Yeah, all right. Last one. During the board open forum, one of the board members brings up the idea, hey, let's add soccer to our extracurricular offerings at Dreamfield. This idea has been suggested before, but it's been viewed as an unwise addition in financially stressed times. Another board member, Amos Athletic, offers to be the coach for the new team and to do some research with similar-sized school districts that already have a soccer team. Now, he can acquire cost estimates for busing, equipment, etc., so that the board has a real clear idea about what they're really talking about financially. Whose job is it to take the next step for providing this opportunity for Dreamfield students?
The superintendent or his or her designee, not the board.
Oop, I went click too quick. All right, it would be easy to say, well, you know what, we've got a board member who's really excited about this, so let's let him do the research. However, the proposal needs to be reviewed in relationship to the big picture of extracurricular athletic offerings, budgets, staffing. The activities director may be asked by the superintendent to do that research and make a recommendation to the superintendent, who will then make a recommendation to the board. But the research is a staff responsibility, as Scott said. The whole board will have access to whatever information is provided regarding costs, etc. They will also ask for input from staff on the overview of the extracurricular program and the needs and strengths. Then they will review policy on student activities and make a decision on any superintendent recommendation in the area based on these resources. All right, 5 for 5. Determining indicators of micromanagement. So in each one of the 5 situations, no area of work was identified for an individual board member. The involvement of an individual board member in investigating or prejudging a situation is often described as micromanagement. Do you want to talk about 2 or 3 of the things that you heard in the last 10 minutes or so? And how they are obvious examples of micromanaging or prejudging?
Like this sheet said here, the things that are day-to-day versus, big picture stuff is a pretty clear indication of whether it's, micromanagement, overstepping, meddling, whatever term you want to use there. So.
Yeah. All right. We have come to our final at the board table for this 2016-17 school year. Our at the board table and Better Boardsmanship Award program actually now goes through August 31st. So we are done. You've crossed the finish line. We'll celebrate that maybe August 10th. And just, yeah. It's early to share this, but the board, 4 of the 5 of you have crossed that finish line. So as a whole board team, you now will be honored in November for having earned that Better Boardsmanship Team Award. So congratulations. It is a long race to run. Sometimes it's information that you've heard in other contexts, but it's always good opportunity to kind of review and refresh what we already know. And we will not do one after another like we've done here for the past 3 board meetings. We'll space those out over the coming 17-18 school year. But thank you for your participation and your work.
Thank you.
Part of needing to do this was the spring district meeting
Right.
that we normally go to had the same topic that the fall district meeting had that was held here.
Exactly. So why go twice and pay for that?
Yeah, it kind of
And that threw us off a little bit.
threw us off a little bit in having our credits or our classroom time.
They also conducted fewer webinars this spring, and that was something that you could access, at the ease of your office or kind of on demand. Many times if you missed the live version, you could go back and review one and still earn the credit for that. And they just really scaled back this spring.
Maybe we should propose doing a webinar as a board for the ISAB with some additional credits for us as presenters.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
we should be getting credits for that.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item 10, legislative priorities.
It's that time of year again. If you want to look at the legislative priorities, you can find them. There's a list of them on the ISAB webpage. They have it. It's quite easy to find. I am going to recommend that we just continue as where we have in the last few years, with our first priority being the setting of the supplemental state aid in a timely manner. Getting that supplemental state aid set. The second being for the SAVE program, repeal the 2029 sunset. We know how, looking forward in our projects, how much of a benefit that would be for us, and we've definitely heard from other districts how desperately they need that to also happen for them to continue forward. Comes to mind as Waukee and them trying to build as fast as they can for their expanding growth and only being able to borrow through 2029 and the limits that's putting on their growth. The third one is the bond issue, supporting allowing school bond issues to be passed by a simple majority. I know we had talked to a representative when we were down there, and he kind of shot me in the foot when I had suggested that, and I wish I had now my comeback that I have now with him to speak to him on, because the having to have a supermajority, why don't they have to have a supermajority then? Because his thing, his words to us was, well, if you really want it, you'll get out there and get your people behind you and work for it. Well, my answer to him is, if you really want that seat in the House or the Senate, then why don't you really get out there and work for it too?
That's right.
And have a supermajority also.
That's right.
Because that's just as important. I feel.
Exactly.
Should be just as important, and should be looked at on an even basis that way. We get to pick 4. So the other 4th one, I feel, is the unfunded mandates. Oppose any new mandates that don't have funding. We've all sat here at this board table long enough now that we realize there's lots of grandiose ideas that come out of the Capitol, but not the money to implement them. And they can't hand us,
Where they-
let's start this new evaluation, let's start all this, but without the funding.
Without
we're-
pinching our money away.
Yes,
Yeah.
without taking away from other programs. We've got such a delicate balance of fundings that for them to throw something like that out of, at us is not feasible for us. So that's my 4 recommendations. That'll take 2.
That sounds good. Do you need a motion?
Yes.
Okay, I move that the 4 priorities that Robin had listed, the supplemental state aid, the continuing the sunset on the SAVE, changing from the supermajority to the simple majority, and what was the last one?
The one is the unfunded mandate.
Unfunded mandates. So those 4 be our priorities for the ISB platform for this coming legislative session.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 4 ISB legislative platform priorities as presented and discussed. Any other questions? Any comments from the public? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Maytumber?
Yes.
Winnering?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes, motion carried 4-0. Agenda item 11, Labor Management Committee. We have a report back.
Yeah, the association responded back with a desire to have 5 members on each side. The board had directed me to share that you preferred 4, so it's back to your court. Would you like me to respond back accepting 5, encouraging them to reconsider 4, or how would you like me to proceed?
Did they give you a rationale as to why 5?
They'd like to have more of the different groups represented by, one individual each.
And where were we, just to refresh our memories, in our thought of who we might pick for the 4 or 5?
Our 4 was a board member, superintendent, a teachers union member, and a community member. Was our recommendation. I mean, I don't want to go back and forth over one person, but I also don't, the purpose, 10 people, you have to have 2 tables. I mean, it just gets a lot of people. 8 people you really can sit around one table. I know that sounds silly, but it is the way I'd like to see it, be in a smaller group. Dr. Cox is offering the regular have your say meetings. They can, on a regular basis, every single person can show up and have their say. This isn't going to be the place to have your say.
Right.
This isn't what these are going to be. So I'm on the fence.
Quite honestly, we had agreed to this during collective bargaining, but since Dr. Cox is going above and beyond and having the have your say meetings with them on a regular basis, I don't feel the need to have a whole lot of this committee going on. I think if there's a problem, if there's a suggestion, a way to improve things, or whatever it may be, that Dr. Cox will hear it and it will be taken care of. And I'm not sure what we're going to be hearing by the time we get to this labor committee.
Yeah, discuss employment matters not referred to in the master contract.
That master contract is all encompassing.
For now.
Yeah.
For now.
Well, actually not.
Yeah,
This group.
I'm not going to add a 5th person on I think that would be, if we could probably both the board members again, but then we're back to,
I'd say go back and tell them 4. and I know we're squabbling over one person each, but Robin's correct about sitting around the table and having the committee's not gonna make any discussion or a decision anyway.
No, no.
It's
And I
collaboratively
guess that's
discussed.
what that's
Final
that's even more
decisions come
so-
back to
Yeah.
us.
Right.
That's even more so the point I think I want you to go back with is to try to help them understand that the importance of this committee might not be what they think it is, that the importance is the monthly meetings where they come and they get a chance to immediately talk to you about the issues rather than saving these all up and having this laundry list that can be taken care of in these big joint meetings. That's not what these are going to be.
That's right, because those monthly meetings, that's the relationship building, that's the team meeting.
That's where we're gonna get things worked out and keep keep everything going and flowing and running and addressing things as needed at that point.
Yep, things that administration needs to handle from their end can be handled from those monthly have your say. If there's things that are above administration to make final decisions, you'll bring those to the board. And again, this committee, does it really have any power other than to discuss? They don't have decision-making power.
No.
No.
No, the stated purpose of that committee is listed right here.
So 4 is sufficient.
How many,
Okay.
within the association, how many groups of, like you said, how many groups of people would they be looking to seek representation?
Bus
from?
driver, food service, instructional assistants, custodians, not even sure who else I'm forgetting, and whether they wanted to represent, some secondary buildings and elementary buildings.
That was my only thought coming along with that, is that there's multiple groups of people that in this, or, in this association, that each of them probably has their own interests that they would like represented, but, it is a conflict of too many people and trying to get something accomplished versus giving them adequate representation for their interests.
Well, and truly, that's sometimes what you hear at that table, not every year, but in past years, you may hear some little things that matter to that person
Yeah.
sitting at that table. It becomes personal to them. But this is, I think we're,
Versus sometimes big picture for the group
Yeah.
that they
Well,
may
there
be
again, that's where
representing.
having a smaller number of people, you're gonna have, those people need to represent a larger number of people. If you've got more people, you're right, Lorraine, they're gonna speak possibly personal preferences. If you have a minimal number of representatives, those people are gonna have to get to those representatives and give them their opinion, so they're carrying that
that's right,
to that
represent
table.
them.
So,
This is a duplicate effort, is what this committee is.
yeah, it's,
Are we in agreement? 4?
yes.
Okay. Moving on to agenda item 12. Immaculate Conception Food Service Agreement. Is there anything you want to say about that, Dr. Cox?
They requested that we provide staff 2 hours a day over there to oversee the serving of the meals. And we have made the decision internally to just keep the agreement the way that it was. We will provide and transport the meals, but they retain the ultimate responsibility for serving the meals that are delivered over to IC. We're already hiring 5 food service workers for the coming school year, and to add an additional staff person for 2 hours a day to do that,
Really
we
kind
just
of
didn't feel was,
puts our labor out of whack.
yeah.
Motion to approve the IC food service agreement without changes.
I'll
I'll second
that.
it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the IC Food Service Agreement without changes. Any other discussion? Comments from the public? Roll call vote, please.
Walker.
Yes.
Maycumber.
Yes.
Wintering.
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes, motion carried 4-0. Agenda item 13, financial report. Mrs. O'Brien, it says here you will briefly highlight
briefly highlight.
Make sure she gets the microphone.
We have a lot of bills to pay.
A lot of bills.
Are we late?
No, we're good. We're good. We paid at the end of June and now again, so it's less than a month that we had to space it. So we're okay. Just to keep everything in perspective, the June information you received is preliminary. So June is our year end. And we have to do our accruals, and some of our accruals are yet to be done. We have receivables, payables, and other things to book. So the 2016-17 information won't be final until September, as usual. The one thing I'll comment on in the general fund, I kind of took a look at our revenue to date preliminary versus the year before. So this year our revenue was 3.4% over our anticipated amount. Last year it was 3.2. So we're kind of right in that same range. As far as general fund expense, last year we were 3.3 under, and this year we're 4.5 under. So, but like I say, things can change in the accruals. We'll bring back final stuff in September. So the next couple of reports, in the report for August, July and August, coming up in September, or August, September, there won't be a comparison to revenue expense. It'll be just the bank reconciliation for that time frame. We'll get the final reports later.
And there'll be another month or so before we get the detailed line item budget for the current fiscal year.
Right, yep.
Finalized.
Yep, that we'll work on in September after the year-end report. So whether we present it in September, October, probably be October before you see a line item comparison for the, in October for the September timeframe.
And board members have received their email from the CPA firm in preparation for the audit.
No?
Yeah,
Well, some of us did.
I did.
No?
Do they not send it to everybody?
No, they should have.
Check your school email. CPA firm is looking for input before they come do our audit,
Like every year.
like they do every year, yep.
No?
Any questions for Terry on the financial report?
Motion to accept the June 27th financial reports as presented.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded to accept the financial reports as presented. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Maycumber,
Yes.
Winnering,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes, motion carried 4-0. Agenda item 14, the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Go ahead.
Consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Roll call vote, please.
Maycumber,
Yes.
Winnering,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes, motion carried 4-0. Agenda item 15, correspondence and miscellaneous. STEM Advisory Council.
A thank you note.
We've got that in our packet.
Oh, that was a nice note, wasn't it?
Agenda item 16, important upcoming dates.
Again, July 31st, next Monday, we go live with that link for online registration, charlescityschools.org. Make sure to head there and do as much as you can, complete the whole thing if possible. If you need some assistance, August 8th, in person at Charles City Middle School, 8 to 4, and then August 9th will be open from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Online registration will end on August 9th. We've got a regular board meeting August 14th, and that will be back at the Charles City Middle School in the 7th grade learning studio. Back to school conferences are just around the corner on the 21st. from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. at Washington and Lincoln. We've got the open house at the middle school and high school that day from 11 to 7 as well. Classes for the 2017-18 school year start on August 23rd. And there's a fun run coming up on August 26th. So, a lot of activity in the upcoming 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Yes.
And deadline for filing papers.
Again, deadline for filing for school board is August 3rd, 5 p.m. Need to turn those in at 500 North Grand Central Office.
The best thing about this schedule is that it does not involve any mopping and cleaning of construction dust.
All right, having no other business to come before the board, we will adjourn.